Thank you. I am the anticlimax, the only thing standing between you and the metro. Not that any of you actually ride the metro. Already hisses from the audience. Listen, there's been a bunch of topics last couple days, but there's one that's undergirding it, which is who we are and how we behave and whether we have character or not. And the way I framed it a few times at Aspen crowds before, is that we have two sets of virtues, what you might call the resume virtues and what you might call the eulogy virtues. The resume virtues are the virtues you bring to the marketplace, the skills you have, whether you're good at business or accounting. The eulogy virtues are the things they talk about you after you're dead, whether you're courageous, brave, honest, whether you're capable of great love. And we live in a society where everybody knows the eulogy virtues are more important, but we all talk about the resume virtues a lot more. And we talk about public life a lot more than private life, even though I would say if you don't have that private solidity, then your public life falls apart. We are to morality what the Victorians were to sex. We just cover it over in euphemism. And yet we understand that character is destiny. If you don't have character, whether you're talking about AIDS, whether you're talking about Ebola, whether you're talking about trade policy, it all sorts of falls apart. You have your scandal, your Watergate, and your system doesn't work. And the people who have actually been good at government, good at writing, have had some essential character qualities. Abraham Lincoln suffered from depression, and out of that had a sense of providence that led him through the Civil War. Franklin Roosevelt was sort of a shallow, flighty guy until he had polio. And that experience of having polio changed him and deepened him and gave him the empathy he needed to be a great president. And so we all know this, but we don't really think about exactly what character is. And so I thought just for the last 3 minutes here, I'd try to think us through what do we mean when we use the word character, what exactly do we mean? I think the first thing we mean is some constancy, that the things that lead us astray are short-term, like lust, fear, vanity, and gluttony, and the things that we call character are courage, honesty, and humility. They're long-term. And the people we say have character, they have a consistency of action over time, even in good conditions and bad conditions. The second thing we'd say about character is that somebody with character is not sort of a free-floating lone wolf. They have a series of connections to things that are big and that anchor them and make them stable. In the realm of an intellect, those people have a set of permanent convictions about fundamental truths. In the realm of emotion, they have a web of unconditional loves. In the realm of action, they have a permanent commitment to things that transcend a single lifetime, projects that transcend a lifetime. The third thing we'd say about somebody with character is that there's something solid inside them, that you have a central spot inside yourself, the place where you make your decisions, especially your big moral decisions, and that core piece of you is malleable by you. If you make disciplined, loving choices, you slowly engrave some permanent discipline on that core piece. If you make fragmented, disordered decisions, selfish decisions, you degrade that core piece, and you become fragmented. And so I think when we mean character, we mean consistency over time. And then if you look at people like Lincoln and Franklin Roosevelt, how do they get to character? You see a couple of traits and you see a trajectory of their lives. First, those people are capable of great love. It's hard to imagine that somebody who we said had character is not capable of great love. And love humbles you. It reminds you you're not even in control of your own brain. You don't choose to fall in love, you fall in love. Then it decenters you. It reminds you that the riches in your life are not in yourself, they're in somebody else. And then it elevates you. You want to serve your beloved. We become what we love, Augustine famously said. So it drags you down to humility, and then it decenters you, and then it lifts you up. The second thing we notice about suffering, and it's certainly true of Roosevelt and Lincoln, was that about character is that usually those people have been through some suffering. And suffering has the same sort of shape of love, though in the inverse. Suffering humbles you because you can't control your own brain. You can't decide to suffer. You can't even get out of suffering when you feel it. Second, it hollows you out, decenters you. The 1950s theologian Paul Tillich said that suffering drags us beneath the busyness of life and reminds us that we're not the person we thought we were. Tillich's metaphor was suffering digs into the basement of your soul and then carves through the floor of that basement, revealing a cavity below, and then carves through the floor of that, revealing a cavity below, carves through the floor of that, revealing a cavity below. And so you're emptied out. But then it elevates you. People who've been through great suffering don't just want to party. I have some friends here in town who lost a child, a son, and they didn't say, well, we've been sad for 2 years, let's go out and party so we can get a little happier. They wanted to turn that suffering into something transcendent, so they created a foundation so other boys wouldn't suffer the way their son had. And so suffering elevates you up into a realm of holiness, where you're not just chasing personal happiness, you're chasing something transcendent. One of my heroes is a guy named Samuel Johnson, one of the greatest essayists and journalists ever. He was born nearly dead. He developed smallpox as a young boy. He was nursed with milk which had tuberculosis, so it made him permanently blind in one eye, deaf in an ear. The smallpox scarred his face. They did an operation on his throat, which they took out part of his jaw. They kept his arm open to bleed him for 6 years. He had a miserable childhood. And a miserable young adulthood. He was ugly, scarred, nearly blind, oafish, Tourette's syndrome, horrible fits of depression, suicide attempts. So really dragged down through suffering. And relevant to the Ideas Festival, he wrote his way to character. He came to London, worked as a freelance writer for 20 years, getting nothing published under his own name, but a lot of brilliant stuff published anonymously. He could write 1,800 words an hour, 30 words a minute. A friend of his was named law professor, didn't know anything about the law. Johnson wrote for him for free law lectures accounting to 1,600 pages. And what Johnson did was write his way to the stability of the truth. He just tried to describe accurately the world he saw around him, and he tethered himself to that. And many of his aphorisms contain that stability, realism, intense, honest realism. Some of his famous ones are, a man of genius is seldom ruined by himself. If you're idle, be not solitary. If you're solitary, be not idle, etc., etc. And it was an impressive struggle. And that's the final thing we'd say about solitude. Therefore, we must be saved by love. No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend or foe as it is from our own standpoint. Therefore, we must be saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness. So thanks very much.